What's up, everybody? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, and we were talking UFC best bets again. The UFC fight night this weekend at the Apex in Las Vegas. I'm not in Las Vegas, actually. I usually am, but I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida to interview Dustin Poirier. So keep an eye out for that. Obviously, he's got a big fight coming up against Conor McGregor. We got our guy, James Krause, UFC fighter, coach at Glory MMA there in Kansas City. And then, of course, Nick Kalikas, who is working over at the sportsbook, Circa Sportsbook there in Las Vegas to talk about things from the gambling side. Before we get into this weekend, which is Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov heavyweight fight in the main event, we got to go look back on last week. James, man, bringing the cash, dude. Again, I love it. Cheeto Vera, Chaos Williams, both of them pretty drama-free, man. Pretty drama-free. I mean, fun fights. Two of the more entertaining fights that you could have picked out to bet on, and you cashed both of them. Nick Procopio, she was getting it done early, and then it kind of ran out of steam there at the end. And then Dan Ige, Korean Zombie. What did we say last week? We were talking about Korean Zombie. The questions need to be answered. He answered them, man. I mean, Korean Zombie is still right up there at the very top. He's elite. Can he win a title? I don't know. He could certainly get a shot at it, and he's going to be competitive because the guy's still very good. So that wraps up last week. Let's get to this week. As I mentioned, Gane versus Volkov. Gane minus 165 when I checked it this morning at William Hill. Volkov coming back at plus 145. Nick, let's actually start with you on this one. Sometimes I just like to open it up with, were you surprised at all? Did this line come out about where you thought it would?
Yeah, it did. Maybe a little bit higher. Originally, it opened at minus 135. So I think the opener was pretty fair, to be honest with you. But now it's sitting at minus 170, which is a little bit higher than I expected it to be. Because, I mean, you have two elite level heavyweight strikers here. This is going to be a fun matchup. I love it. Because, I mean, in my opinion, they are two of the best heavyweights in the world. And they both like to strike. Of course, they're both well-rounded. So the skill set, they are adapting and becoming more than just one-trick ponies with their striking, right? These guys are using the wrestling. They're starting to use jiu-jitsu. They're just becoming more complete fighters. But that said, it's going to be a competitive matchup. So I'm a little surprised with the public action coming in and betting it up to minus 170 right now. But at the same time, like I said, I think Gane deserves to be a slight favorite in this fight.
See, I'm not that surprised because, Gane just seems to have more of that it factor a little bit more than Volkov right now. I mean, he is, to use what is a word that James uses sometimes, he's more of the sexy pick, I feel like, in this heavyweight fight. James, are you surprised at all that the money is coming in on Gane? And do you think that that is the right call for people to be betting Gane, especially where it opened at minus 130, minus 135?
I'm not surprised, as Nate Diaz would say. I'm not surprised, but I do feel like there's some slight disrespect on Volkov, and I think that Volkov is, he's amazing. He's consistent. He's an elite level heavyweight striker. I think what we see in Ciryl Gane though is like not only do we see this big athletic, heavy punching heavyweight, but now that I think about it, like, have we ever seen him really get out of second gear yet? Like, have we seen a chink in the armor at all? Like, I haven't really seen him even pressed at all. Have you guys? I can't think of a fight that he's really even been, pressed. And we've seen that with Volkov. He's been in the UFC a little bit longer, faced some bigger names, but I don't even think I've seen a chink in the armor with Ciryl Gane. However, I do think that Volkov he's one of those guys that can cause a lot of problems. He's a big, long, tall, lengthy striker. He's good on the ground. He's good in the clinch. He can cause a lot of problems. So am I surprised that it went up? No, but Volkov is a guy that I feel like could be getting slightly disrespected here.
I love that, James, because you're absolutely right. And sometimes you see these situations where a guy has not been through really a lot of adversity yet, and that's fine. That's a credit to him because he has not been tested. But I think a lot of us thought that maybe Rosenstrike was the guy to test him. Certainly,
I did not think that.
That was okay. So you did not think that. You're smarter than some of the rest of us, but that was certainly not the case. When you are factoring that into whether or not you're going to bet a fight, James, how much does that weigh in? That like, hey, haven't seen this guy tested, so we don't know if he's going to handle it particularly well. And I do think that Volkov could be the guy to test him.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you, man. I kind of want to stay completely away from this and maybe mess with the totals. But there's not enough information for me yet for me to really make a good educated pick on this. When we can look at Gane and say that he hasn't been tested yet. But, man, he also hasn't been tested yet. Like, not only has he not been tested, but, like, he hasn't even gotten out of second gear, in my opinion. Like, who's even pressed him? Like, Rosenstrike didn't do nothing to – you know what I mean? Like, not only has he not been tested, but he hasn't even been pushed, in my opinion. I do think Volkov is going to be the guy to like, he's going to pull some new stuff out of Gane. We're going to get some information in this fight, I do believe. But for me, it's really hard to see where his ceiling is if we haven't even seen him get out of second gear yet. You know, we're still in the basement with this guy, so we don't even know what the main floor looks like before we start looking at the ceiling.
Nick, I feel like there's two ways to look at this line if you're going to try and bet. One is that Gane was, 3-1 over Rosenstrike, 3-1 over JDS, and now, you can get him for cheaper. And maybe, if he is pushed and he does show a second gear or third gear, like James is saying, you might not be able to get this guy at minus 165 again against a lot of these guys at heavyweight. Or you can look at it as Volkov, and I just looked this up, that he is 7-2 in the UFC, and he's only been favored in 4 of those fights. And one of those losses came to Derek Lewis, and it was a loss. I mean, he
you know why? Because he doesn't do anything sexy.
There you go. I mean, that's James's motto, his catchphrase on this show. But he's right. Volkov has been underappreciated so far. So the way I'm looking at this is there's two narratives if I'm looking to put money on this fight, right? Either I'm getting an opportunity to get Gane relatively cheaper, when he's not going to be cheaper moving forward, or I'm getting a chance to hey man, Volkov has proven it time and again that he's a good bet as an underdog. Is that sort of the narratives? And what do you think about each of them, Nick?
I do, and especially the improvement that we've seen. I mean, when he was in Bellator, I think he was a completely different fighter. He's taken his game to another level since he entered the UFC. He's putting the work. He's gotten physically bigger, stronger. You can tell. I mean, just his body, right, has matured so much. So he's definitely a guy that I think kind of has been flying under the radar. And now we're starting to see a little bit more respect. That's why the line is a little bit, I think, closer to. Like I said, I think the original line, minus 135, minus 140, was right. But, I mean, still, what you just said, I mean, he was a larger favorite in most of his fights, right? Gane was. And now Volkov is a smaller line because, again, I think people are realizing how good of a heavyweight this guy really is at this point. But not enough yet for him to get that kind of respect, I guess, to make it even tighter. So, yeah, I think it's a dog or pass situation. I mean, like James said, we have to see Gane tested. I think probably the toughest fight for him might have been the Boser fight, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he was able to comfortably win that decision as well. So, yeah, he hasn't been in second gear, but he will be. If anything, I mean, Volkov's going to be in his face. He's going to be landing some punches. He's definitely going to put him in a spot where he's uncomfortable. So this is great. We're going to really see if he's a true contender and could possibly – look, if there's a stylistic matchup that could maybe beat Ngannou, it could be Gane, right? I mean, he's a slick striker, a well-rounded fighter that continues to improve as well. I'm not saying he's ready for that. But, I mean, if he can get through Volkov, then he's going to be in the conversation. And obviously, he's going to probably be next in line or soon after, right?
And he used to spar with Ngannou. So if that fight ever happens, then I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot. James, real quick, Nick was talking about how these guys are well-rounded. They don't have a whole lot of holes. But first off, do you see this fight hitting the ground, or do you see it as a stand-up fight? And when it's standing, what would you say about the matchup between these two?
I don't see it hitting the ground. Neither one of these guys are super great wrestlers. If there is takedowns, I would see them being on the fence. From a striking standpoint, God, it's just so hard, man. The Volkov's going to get in his face. Volkov's going to make him fight. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about this fight is I do think we're going to see some of these questions answered about Gane. I do think we're going to see him at least in third gear. And from my perspective, I want to lean towards him winning this fight just because I haven't seen him even in trouble, or I'm trying to think of where he got hit clean. You know what I mean? I haven't really seen anything done to the dude. He's slick. He's good everywhere. He's extremely agile for a big guy, hits hard. He's got good hand speed. He's got all the things that you would want to have in the conversation about fighting for a heavyweight title at some point. But I'm in my head, I'm thinking, man, Volkov is being extremely disrespected. I know 7-2, one loss was to Lewis, and he was beating Derek Lewis up. Yeah, I mean, he was beating him up, and he lost in the last 5-10 seconds of the fight. And I know a loss is a loss, but you got to look at his overall skill set. For me, I want to lean towards Gane winning the fight, but I feel like the value is for sure on Volkov, and I do feel like he's being slightly disrespected here. And once again, it's just because he's not super flashy. He's just consistent. He does everything right. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Where I see this fight taking place is I could see Gane just kind of pressing him back a little bit, putting him on the fence, banking rounds, and, really close rounds. I could see that. But I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Volkov did the same to him. I think whoever's going to put up the most volume here, whoever has the higher volume count is going to win this fight. I think that's going to be extremely important for both these guys. it's a very, very evenly matched fight, in my opinion. I'm very excited for it. And I think we're going to see both of these guys push to a level that we haven't seen them push. Because even in the Derek Lewis loss to Volkov, you didn't see him push, right? He just got clipped. So I think both of these guys are going to elevate the other to the next level. I'm really excited to see, the improvements on both sides and who deals with the other.
One thing you didn't mention when you were listing off what you like about Gane is I liked his discipline when he was fighting Rosenstrike. If you're a fight fan looking for blood, you didn't love that. But if you're a bettor with money on Gane, then you like the discipline. Why put yourself in harm's way if you don't have to? James, real quick, or I'm sorry, Nick, actually, real quick, 30 seconds or less. Give me the total. Give me your thoughts on the total, and then James, you can piggyback on what you think on the total.
I got to mention though that Lewis Volkov fight real quick. That was historically one of the worst bad beats in the history of the sport, right? I mean, those bettors on Volkov, getting their bet money stolen real quick. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll move forward in this one. That was a bad beat. SVP will be proud there. But this total is actually 4.5 flat right now. Now, some places have it 4.5 over -120. So it's expected for a heavyweight fight. You don't see a lot of 4.5 rounds. So it's expected. Both these guys are pretty durable. It's expected to go to the scorecards, possibly. It's going to be, hovering around that 4.5 mark spot. So I think it's about right. It's going to be tough. I could see it going under, but I could also see it going the distance.
James, you got a lean on the total?
Over. Both these guys are really durable. They're very long. They're long strikers. Neither one of them get hit clean very often. And once again, we've talked about this in the 5 rounds. I do feel like once you get past that round and a half mark, they kind of just settle in a little bit, especially at heavyweight. They get a little bit more tired, and it's just about winning rounds at that point. Don't take my word for it. I said it last week.
Yeah, no, I could hear you saying that before you said it, James, but it's so true. And now that you've mentioned it and you pointed it out, I'm actually seeing it happen in fights where it come out high intensity and you both settle in. And like you said, especially at heavyweight, some of these guys get tired. They know that they can't make a mistake because one mistake could end it. They get a little, their activity kind of goes down a little bit. I can see this fight going over for all of those reasons.
It's easy to pace 15 minutes, guys. It's easy to pace that. It is really difficult to pace a 25-minute fight because it's so sporadic back and forth. You try to pace it, and it's just really, really hard. So as fighters, we tend to kind of just settle in a little bit and slow down. That way, if we need to pick it up, we have the extra rather than pick it up early and we don't have it. You know what I mean? Like, so they tend to start a little slower than they normally would. They settle in a little faster than they normally would on the 5 rounds rather than the 3.
All right, let's get to the best bets. Nick, why don't you start us off this week? Where are you going with your money this week?
A couple totals. We're going to go 2.5 rounds under in the James Rosa fight. I think there's a lot of firepower there. I don't think that fight does hit the scorecard. Something's going to give. So under 2.5 rounds is basically a pick 'em fight out there. Small chalk on the under. So we're going to go that one. And also, I think the Fili Pineda fight has a lot of firepower as well. So I'm going to go under 2.5 rounds in that one. And you're going to get some plus money some places in that fight as well. So a little bit of basically a pick 'em type of line in each spot here, but under 2.5 rounds. So Pineda, Fili under, and then also the James Rosa under.
All right, James, where are you headed?
I really like Kennedy Nzechukwu. What is it?
Oh man, I know it, and now I'm blanking on it.
Nzechukwu, right?
Yes.
Nzechukwu, Kennedy Nzechukwu. I really like him a lot, and I'm obviously within, I'm deeply rooted in the industry. Everybody that I hear talk about this kid says this dude is a damn beast, and we're seeing 1/10 of his true potential. He's coming off of a huge knockout win over Carlos Ulberg from City Kickboxing. I feel like this is exactly what he needed to, get his confidence going and really start letting the hammer go. He's got 1 loss in the UFC against Paul Craig, and he was beating the mess out of Paul Craig before he got subbed. I think this is going to be his breakout fight. I think we have him at -130 right now. I really like the odds for that. I really like this matchup for him. I think we're going to see this kid's breakout fight. He's under a good camp of Fortis MMA. I know Safe's going to have him ready. The head coach, Saif Saeed, he's going to have him ready. I really like this fight. I feel really strongly about this one.
All right. So a big time, an A plus bet by James Krause for his best bet, and then 2 totals by Nick. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the fights. UFC Fight Night this weekend. We're off next week because there is no UFC, but then we got a big one: Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, UFC 264. So we will see you then. Enjoy the fights.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.